so the match has literally just finished there. Blackburn won, Newcastle won, and it took pens for Newcastle to qualify. But does that just paper over the cracks of the Eddie Howe issues at the moment? Okay, so I need to be a little bit mindful before I do this video because Newcastle did just scrape a video. I had this entire script wrote out watching the game. Was not happy with that result. I think we were the second better team. We scraped through a little bit on penalties. And I know when this goes out, it'll get scheduled for tomorrow morning. Tempers will have gone down. Everything will have simmered down a little bit. But watching that game, I was infuriated because we were getting absolutely tanked by a team 16th in the championship, a team that's battling relegation, and a team we should be putting to the sword pretty early on, especially considering we're on the back of a terrible result against Arsenal. Now, Eddie Howe needed a performance going into this game. He knew kind of it was embarrassing defeat. Alan Shearer referenced it during commentary and match of the day, that it was a dreadful result and Newcastle should be doing a lot better. They got torn apart by Arsenal. The scoreline kind of flattered a little bit. And this was a kind of easy redemption just a few days after for Newcastle to kind of turn things around. Now, the team that Newcastle put out was a very, very strong team. Should be doing much better. Does that come down to Eddie Howe? Is that his tactics? Is that the players that should be doing better? Let us know your thoughts in the comment below. But either way, Newcastle should be outperforming that performance that they put in last night. Now, when it was going to extra time, the BBC commentators did state there is some pressure on Eddie Howe and kind of question that. So I thought I would just float it to you guys, Newcastle fans, fans of other clubs, to kind of share your thoughts on this. So firstly, I'd be remiss of saying a huge amount of injuries this season. It can't be understated. It's been up there with the most injury list in the whole of the Premier League this season. But on paper, Newcastle have now been locked out of the Champions League. They're underperforming, you would say, in the league. That looks like it's still early doors, still a lot of points to play for, but it looks like Newcastle are going to be really up against it, trying to qualify for Europe next season, and we nearly got knocked out of the club by Blackburn. Now, ultimately, it's not the Newcastle fans that'll get Eddie Howe kicked out of a job, or if there's pressure on Eddie Howe. Yes, that'll come into a factor in, but ultimately it's the Saudi owners who are going to make the ultimate decision. Now, will they be looking and saying, there's a lot of injuries this season, don't worry, pressure's off Eddie Howe, he did fantastic last season, a lot of credit in the bank, or will they be looking at the results and losses this season? Obviously, they're very, very ambitious. They don't want to be settling for 10th, 8th, whatever in the league, especially considering you've seen just how good Newcastle were last season. That'll have kind of pushed on the ambition by the club even more so, and you would imagine they're not going to be happy with not qualifying for Europe next season. Now, like I say, there has been a load of injuries. One of the people of note that was on the bench yet again is Lewis Hall. I don't really know what he has to do to get a game at Newcastle. In the depths of an injury crisis, he couldn't break into the first team. It comes to the cup, and normally if it comes to the cup, you put all of your players on who are bench warmers and stuff like that, give them a chance to kind of feel part of the group and stuff like that, whether they are or not part of the crucial plans. He didn't come on at all. So I don't know what this says about Lewis Hall, whether he's not doing it in training, whether there is a contract issue and we don't want to get him to a certain amount of appearances because then it becomes an obligation to buy. I really don't know, but it's a baffling situation. Newcastle did pay a little bit of a loan fee up front. I think it was around 2 million. So they've spent 2 million, which is peanuts really, but that money could have been spent elsewhere if we knew that he wasn't going to be playing. So is that a bit of a communication problem between the outgoing Dan Ashworth and Eddie Howe? Is one of them not fancied, not communicated a little bit too much? But either way, it's not going to do Lewis Hall's career any good. He's went out to try to get first team football. He's probably been excited to join the project at Newcastle, seen himself probably part of the future for Newcastle, but it doesn't look to me that he's got any future for Newcastle. Now, Eddie Howe does get asked in the press conferences about this almost every week. He's very non-committal about it, doesn't really commit too much information about it, but the proof is in the pudding. You can see he's not fancied at Newcastle. It's very unlikely that he's going to be staying on at the club. £35 million is the fee, which begs the question, why would you end up paying that for someone that you don't fancy enough to put on in the height of an injury crisis at Newcastle? Now, I had this note before penalties. Dubravka, he takes a lot of criticism. We got a few different Facebook pages, Newcastle Supporters Worldwide. We put the link below. If you're a Newcastle fan, follow the page. We've got loads of breaking news stories, everything to keep you up to date with Newcastle United. But a lot of fans on there, not a lot, a few people that comment on that don't seem to be Dubravka's biggest fan. It's not just one or two, it is quite a few. I personally thought he was man of the match well before penalties. I had this down in the notes when I was watching the game. He played fantastic. The score could have been completely different without him. And even though I think Karius did very well at the weekend, I thought he was possibly a little bit unlucky that he wasn't selected for this and then saved Dubravka for the weekend. But either way, fantastic performance, and he really did keep the scoreline down. And a lot of the fans on the pages are kind of pointing the finger at Dubravka for the reason why we're conceding lots. People are literally just looking at the goals conceded column and blaming it all on Dubravka. Is it Dubravka, or is it the fact that there's been so many injuries and it's unsettled the defence? There hasn't really been a solid back four all season. If you look at it, from right to left, you've had Kieran Trippier, who's been out of form for a few games in this season, cost Newcastle a lot of points, had a lot of personal issues that he's dealing with off the field. That seems to be sorted now, but obviously that factors in to the unsettling of the Newcastle defence this season. You've had Botman, who's been out for a big chunk of the season. Lascelles, even though he stepped in my opinion, I know a lot of fans will disagree, but he's been fantastic when he was playing. Didn't really have his greatest game yesterday, today. And then you've got Fabian Schär, who for me has been absolutely fantastic at the back all season. The way he took his penalty as well. And then you've got Big Dan Burn. Now, a lot of fans have been criticising him in recent weeks, we'll say, just in the last month or so. He's not blessed with a load of pace, and a lot of people are calling for Tino Livramento. A lot of wingers nowadays have an obscene amount of pace, and he's selected to go up against them when fans seemingly want Tino to be starting in that position. So it's kind of unsettled the left-back position. No one's really got that nailed down. We have seen a little bit of a rotation with that. Or is it the fact that Nick Pope has been out all season? For me, I think it's not necessarily the Nick Pope effect. I think when you look at the Liverpool game, it was the Premier League record this season for most shots against. If you look at the Blackburn match yesterday, today, that they managed to carve us open so many times, and this is a mid-table, well, not even a mid-table, a lower-end championship team. We're managing to create so many chances against us. I fear against Wolves at the weekend because I know their attacking players are full of flair and really good form at the minute. I can really see us struggling to keep a clean sheet there. So just to go back to Eddie Howe, I think the penalty win, it definitely would have papered over the crack. I think if that had gone the other way, which it's a toss-up, it's a lottery shoot in pens to who ends up taking the victory for that. If we had have lost that, I think there would have been some portion of Newcastle fans that would have possibly been looking to turn against Eddie Howe, just because we know that squad has the potential not only to beat Blackburn, but be putting in performances much better than the last couple of weeks, especially at Blackburn. Now again, on the Facebook groups and everything, I have seen a couple of people saying Eddie Howe out and stuff like that. Now, I'm definitely not in the Eddie Howe out camp. I haven't been all season. You've seen from previous videos, I know he's under a little bit of pressure before the Sunderland game. I was not one of them people. I'm very, very happy with Eddie Howe as the manager. I think what he's done since joining should give him a ton of credit in the bank, and I'm really excited to see what happens next season. We're going to have Joelinton back, which is an absolute huge miss. You can see it every single week, just the effect that he brings to Newcastle, both defensively and attacking. He breaks so much play up. You're going to have Nick Pope back, and hopefully give a little bit of confidence back to the Newcastle backline. Hopefully that'll shore things up a little bit. You're going to have Tonali, which will be a brand new signing, and then whatever happens in the summer as well. Eddie Howe, for me, has done more than enough. He's got more than enough credit in the bank. However, there has been a couple of grumblings that we've noticed on the page. Football's an opinionated game. I want to get your opinions. Let us know what you thought of the match, what you think of the Eddie Howe situation, and what Eddie Howe really needs to do just to turn a corner a little bit with the recent performances and stuff like that. Who's to blame? You know, is it injuries, or we're still trying to get some of the players back? Is that going to be taken into account? What's your thoughts? Let us know below, and don't forget, like, follow, subscribe. Don't forget to do all the usual stuff. We are just a local channel, so every single one of those is very, very much appreciated, and we'll see you in the next one.